Hello, I'm Michael Kurland, CEO and co-founder of Branded Group, an award-winning facility maintenance and construction management company that services multi-site commercial properties such as retail, restaurants, healthcare facilities, and educational institutions. Welcome to the Be Better podcast. Each week, I interview thought leaders from a variety of industries who will share their stories and the lessons they learn as they strive to be better for their clients, partners, employees, and their community. Are you ready to be better?
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Be Better podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kurland. Today, we have our first international guest, Mr. David Deacon, founder of the Talent Office, joining us from the UK. David, so happy you're here. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Thank you, Michael. I'm so happy I'm here too. I'm delighted to be your first international guest. That's cool. So thanks for inviting me. So I'm David Deacon. I'm the founder of the Talent Office. The Talent Office is a consulting firm that works solely in talent management and leadership development and culture development and employee experience and career development and all those kind of talent HR things. We also do management training, which is because I wrote the book. So obviously I have to plug the book. I will try to plug the book a couple of times with your gracious permission.
Of
course.
The
book is thank you. The book is The Self-Determined Manager.
Yes.
Which is my attempt to get managers to understand better the power and the opportunity behind their roles. And it's not about delegation and difficult conversations and the usual stuff that we talk to managers about. It's about attitude and approach and what great managers actually do, which when I say it, but you don't think about until someone tells you. And so I'm trying to change the world of how management gets done and change how talent management gets done along the way too.
That's great. And, from our point of view, or my point of view, you get into these middle management roles and it's kind of, to your point, robotic. It's okay. You need to learn how to have this hard conversation, learn how to manage these people. And that's, kind of the operational side of it, but there's so much more to being a manager. There's the emotional side and the emotional intelligence. And I'm assuming that's kind of where you're going with what you're saying, right? It's not just, okay, do task A, B, and C, and you'll be good at your job. It's like you have to do all of the job requirements, but you also have to learn how to read people and, what works with person A isn't going to work with person B. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm sure we'll talk about it as we talk about culture, because the thing with managers is what a manager does is create a climate for the team of people that work for them. And that's automatic. It's built into being a manager because we look to our manager for the signals about what matters and how to behave and how things are going and what the priorities are. And so a manager creates a sort of microclimate. And this happens. This happens because if you're a boss and you're in a bad mood and you go into the office, back in the days when we were able to go into offices, you went into the office and you snarled because something bad had happened, or you didn't have your favorite coffee at Starbucks or whatever it was, you're in a bad mood. And so your first thing is you snarl. And everyone is then, for the rest of the day, careful, and they tiptoe around you, and that the mood is muted, and everyone's a little bit cautious, and no one tells jokes, and the whole, your mood has set the tone for the team.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time. And because that happens, the best managers recognize this, and they deliberately and intentionally choose the environment that they create for their team. And in that simple act lies much of being a great manager. And poor managers are sort of accidental and not thoughtful enough about the microclimate that they create for their team.
And to their defense, it's When you get into, I mean, I guess we could go upper management, lower management, right? But I'm thinking more middle management, right? Because that's really
Yeah.
the bread and butter, and that's when
Hmm.
you work so hard to get to this middle management position, and then you're there, and you got there because you were so good at doing the function of your
Yeah.
job, because you
Yeah.
weren't managing people, you were functionally working through your job, and then you get there, and now you have to manage people, and
Yeah.
you come in and you had a bad day, or your cohort, other middle manager, dumped some extra work on you, and now
Hmm.
who are you venting to? Well, you're venting to the people that were your cohorts when you were doing the functional part of your job, and now you're managing these people, and that sets a tone. And that's something that we have a slight problem with. Is just you gotta, once you get in there, no one tells you, you gotta compartmentalize your emotions down to your people, right? Because you set the tone for the day, as you
Yeah.
just said. Anyway,
Yeah.
well, this is all fascinating, and a great conversation. So we're off to a good start. I like it. Well, let's talk a little bit about that company culture, because you kept
Mm.
saying climate, and I think culture and climate are pretty much synonymous, or at
I
least
agree.
hand in hand, right?
Yeah, I
So
agree.
why do you think a solid company culture is so important?
Mm. Well, yeah. I guess there's three thoughts. Three thoughts occur to me, Michael. So, differentiation really matters at the moment because information is just everywhere, right? Everything that you want to know about what a company does and how it does it and what its history was and what its style is. All those things. The information is everywhere. It's this massive transparency, and so there's no mystery anymore to your company in terms of what it does, and actually anything that you do that isn't very positive tends to be out there and out there fast.
Yeah, my fiance used to work for a local news channel in college. She thought she wanted to be a journalist. She
Mm.
would have been a great one, but she always tells me, their motto in the newsroom is, "If it bleeds, it leads," and
Right,
and it's like
right,
bad,
exactly.
it's like bad news. Everyone wants to hear the bad news. So
Yeah,
to your point,
yeah.
sorry, keep going.
No, that's exactly right. And so because of that, how are you going to differentiate your company?
Right?
And the answer is style, right? It's what makes you attractive. It's how you operate. It's the priorities that you have. It's the way that you and your people show up. That's the differentiator, because all other forms of mystery and specialness have been torpedoed by transparency, and that's probably a good thing.
It's a great thing, because I can remember my first couple of jobs before, back in 2002, and you walked in the place, and it looks like a good place. It has this little website that, back in 2002 wasn't much of anything, and
Yeah, yeah,
nobody
sure.
nobody talked about culture. Like,
No,
what's that? That's like, oh, Google has that, and they have beanbag chairs and ping pong tables, right? But 20 years later now, like to your point, it's all transparent. You're walking in, and like, we have a huge part of our website just dedicated to our culture, because
yeah,
we need people to know what they're walking into when they come in, and what they want to sign up for. And it's good. It's a good thing, to your point,
yeah,
transparency.
yeah. I think it is, and it signals what's important, and so your employees know what's important, and you always know when you're dealing with someone who works in a strong positive culture, because you can have a strong negative culture as well, of course. But if someone's working in a strong positive culture, two things happen. One, your interaction with them is pretty consistent with your interaction with anyone else from the same company. And secondly, it's consistently positive. And so because they have that kind of certainty around them of what's important, so they operate with that confidence that, that means they show up as you want them to. And if you're like you are, you're a founder, you've created something. You need people to do that, right? You need people to understand how to behave when you're not there, because you're not there.
Yeah, yeah. You got mine. What are when the cat's away, the mice will play, right? So,
Yeah, yeah,
but to your point, like when we're going through our hiring process at this point, it's a big thing we talk about, and it's,
Yeah.
we volunteer hours, we give back, and not that's not for everybody, right? And there's nothing wrong with it if you don't want to volunteer and you don't want to give
Yeah.
back, but that's part of our culture. And I don't want to say it's expected, but it's going to be an opportunities left and right for you to do that at Branded Group. And
Yeah.
so if that's not something you're interested in, maybe this isn't the best place for you, and that's okay. But
Yeah.
to the point, right? Like, so we're putting out there what our expectations are for our culture, and it may be a little, it's a positive culture, to
Right.
thankfully not a negative one, and maybe someone's just not happy, doesn't want to do these positive things, so that culture's not for them. So I like
Yeah.
what you're saying there.
And which leads to the third thing, which is that once people join you, a strong culture which resonates with them creates stickiness. So they're much more likely to be loyal. They're much less likely to take a job for a little bit more. Most people will take a job for a lot more, but it just creates that kind of that retention, stickiness that people like it. I like it here. I want to stay. I once wrote an engagement survey, a 2-question engagement survey, with the brilliant Susan Ross when we were both at MasterCard. And the 2 questions were, 1, do I like it here? And 2, do I plan to stay? Because ultimately, that's all employers or employees really want to know about. Am I happy? Am I staying?
That's so simplistic, but brilliant. I might steal
I'll
that.
take that. Simplistic but brilliant. Oh, absolutely. I'm going to put that on my resume.
So we're talking about the retention rate here, and that's something that we highly focus on, and it's a two-way street, right? Because for us, our clients like it when our employees stick around, because learning our clients' needs and wants on more than just a functional basis is very important. But we've to your point, we've had employees stay when they've been offered higher paying jobs because they like it. And I think it's almost a FOMO thing, like, oh, I don't want to leave here because I love it here, even though it's a couple $1,000s less a year. Like, I'm going to stick it out because I love it. And we have a high rate of millennials working for us, and it's that purpose that we give them with, Branded Group is huge on giving back, and we have a 1-for-1 program that we're redesigning currently, and that's 1 minute of service for every work order completed, which is going to change in 2021 because we can't afford to give out that much service anymore. We're going to have to hire people full-time to do community service. Right. So they say, like, the purpose that they have of being here is worth more than the higher pay or going somewhere else. So anyway, I digress. So leading into the next question, how can companies develop a company culture, and what have you done to help companies develop company culture?
I want to talk about MasterCard.
Okay, let's do it.
Because and I mentioned Susan Ross at MasterCard. I was the chief talent officer there for 5 years, 2012 through 2017, and it was a real period of transformation in that organization. And the relevance really is that what Ajay Banga, the CEO, was doing was driving 2 things at once. He was driving a transformed business strategy, and in parallel, and as far as he was concerned, no less important, a culture transformation in order to support the business strategy. And so what he recognized was what we were doing as a company, which was essentially growing fast when we hadn't been growing at all, going after emerging markets and developing markets when we'd only really been playing in the developed markets, going outside the US into every corner of the world rather than just being really US centric and a little bit of Europe, being ambitious and inventive and creative and going for stuff, whereas before the company had been a not-for-profit and therefore been sort of a lot more risk averse. So there was this. So he was transforming the business and transforming the culture at once, and the two things worked together because they made sense. There's huge opportunity in front of MasterCard, driven by ubiquitous digital technology. That everyone has a cell phone. Everyone. They might not have anything else, but they have a cell phone. So if everyone has a cell phone, you have a unit of transmission for electronic payments. You no longer need a telephone line and reliable source of electricity. You don't need a way of mailing a card to a recipient who may not have a fixed address. You just need your two actors to have a cell phone each. And so this opened up electronic payments, and MasterCard obviously was the first to see this. And Ajay recognized that that was a huge opportunity. That was what he was going after. So that was the business strategy. But the culture, which was based on being this not-for-profit, bank-owned association, that wasn't going to support the strategy. You can have a great strategy, but if the people didn't change their approach, didn't get ambitious and growth-oriented and international and all these things, it wasn't going to happen. So for him, they were two sides of the same coin. And that was really important because it meant everyone understood, a bit like you're describing in your company, everyone understood it really mattered. It wasn't something HR was saying. It wasn't something that had been delegated to one member of the ExCo to get some posters put up. This was Ajay's mission. Business strategy, culture transformation, this was his mission. He supported that then in all kinds of ways. Because he's a brilliant communicator. One of the things he did really well was he picked up little phrases. And it's funny because I can still remember them. So for example, sense of urgency. He would talk over and over and over again about the importance of a sense of urgency, not just for him or his ExCo or the top 50, but everyone in the company. So every town hall he did, every communication he did, he talked about sense of urgency. He did the same this war on cash. He talked about the war on cash, which was his signal that we were going after not the developed payment markets, but every other market where 85% of the transactions were still in cash. That was what we were going after. And it was a war, right? This wasn't an approach on. It wasn't a move towards. It wasn't a go after. It was war, and so he used that. He used language and repetition and the fact that we all hung on his every word, as we all do with our CEOs. He used that as we do we do. And so he used that as the reinforcement. So he was really clear that it mattered, that it was about the business, and then he reinforced it, and then we went after it. So we, leadership development, in tons of that. We did a lot of stuff on what you have to show up like if you're a manager or a leader. We had lots and lots of communications, lots of symbolic things. How the office is set up is very symbolic, right? We were becoming a digital technology company. So we created the office environment like a digital technology company. We looked more like Apple than Apple did. And it was to send the message that says, this is how things are around here.
Yeah.
So, it's a really good, actually, if we had more time, we'd probably get into it more. It's a really good case study of how to develop a culture by demonstrating its importance and then reinforcing it all the way from what the CEO says to how you decorate your office and every space in between.
Sounds like it's more, obviously way more than words on a wall. And I think the biggest thing that I have done as the CEO of Branded Group is walk the walk. When we are out there and I'm saying volunteer, I'm not at every volunteer event, but I'm at a majority of the volunteer events, and I'm certainly at the big volunteer events, the company-wide ones. If there's some people getting together to do something, I may not be there if it's not scheduled with the whole company. But but I'm at every beach cleaning, I'm at every food pantry drive, and if I'm not there, then it becomes lost. Like, oh, he
Yeah.
just says it, but he's never here. So you got to walk the walk. I'm a firm believer in that, and it sounds like that's exactly what RG did. But the the other thing that you got me inspired about is, it sounds like he's rallying an army of troops. You know, the
Yeah.
war on
Yeah.
cash,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then everyone
Brilliant.
had their
Absolutely
battalions
brilliant.
and knew what they needed to do to win this war on cash. So I think that's amazing. And
It was absolutely brilliant. It was inspirational and just, you know, he's such a smart individual. It was so smart.
I like it.
Yeah, very cool.
So
Tell you what though, it's funny. You said, sorry to interrupt you, but you said about showing up at the events. The irony is, you could show up at 9 events and everyone would be delighted to see you. If you missed the 10th event,
that's all they
everyone
talk
would
about.
say he doesn't care. But it's you know, the
All they would talk
decay
about.
of your
But
involvement.
it's
Every
optics.
leader's, yeah,
It's
it's
optics. Just
optics,
like
and
you
it's
said, walking into you change the office to make yourself look like a digital uh, company. And that was for the optics, for people to start believing, hey, we're a digital company.
yeah,
We're no longer a nonprofit bank. We're a
yeah.
digital, you know, we're on the forefront. So that's, you know, that's what they got to see, right? So, I mean, we've kind of touched on this question. This is the next one. What advice would you give to other organizations about developing a strong culture? I think we're doing a good job of talking about that right now. But
We are, but you know, I would add one thing. And funnily enough, actually, I did this with my most recent client, which was a kind of medium-sized recruitment firm, technology recruitment firm, and we created a culture deck, which sounds awful when I say it like that, but it's so Netflix did this, right? Very famously, Netflix created a culture deck, and they did it because they were scared that as they scaled, and they knew they were going to scale fast, they were scared that the things that really mattered about their culture and leadership style, a way of working, which is really what this is all about, that will get lost, that the influence, the founders would just get dissipated, and it would no longer be recognizably how they built it and what they wanted to create. It would become a different thing. And so they started capturing the words and phrases and instructions and exhortations and informal rules that said, this is how stuff gets done around here. And it ended up being famously at least 40 slides, each one just with a phrase on. So not corporate PowerPoint, but funnily enough, PowerPoint.
Yeah, it sounds like the anti-culture culture.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But and the beauty, the importance, and the power, it was their words. It was their words. So if they'd been in front of you, you would have heard them using the words that ended up in the deck. So we did that. We ended up with, we didn't do 50. We ended up with kind of 20 slides at the client I was referring to. And it was a combination of things that really mattered to them, because they had a very strong sense of family, very strong. And they really wanted to maintain that. So we captured on a bunch of these comments the importance of family. But they also needed to grow, because there was this huge market opportunity despite COVID. They absolutely needed to grow. And this sort of family thing, this being nice to each other, this looking after each other, arms around each other, wasn't actually helping them to be ambitious enough and aggressive enough and pushy enough and hold each other to high enough standards. So they were missing the opportunity. So we needed to both describe what was really important still, but also be somewhat aspirational in you know, we also need you to do these things. So we ended up with this sort of amalgamation of what's important and what we need. And that became, but again, their language, not HR speak. This was not vision mission stuff. This is what you'd hear people saying to each other. And And then we used it everywhere. Right? We used it in onboarding, we used it in hiring, we used it in briefings, in town halls, in leadership development, in every possible way. We talked about these things. Because if you don't talk about the culture, and it sounds like you're doing a great job of this, but most companies don't talk about it, and they don't make it live. And as a result, it just kind of, rumbles along and changes, and you almost feel like you're a victim of the culture. But actually, you're the creators of the culture. But if you're going to create it, you have to describe it in an accessible way and in a way that's almost living and breathing. The leadership team has to own this thing. You can't write a culture deck, send it out to everyone as an attachment and say, we're done.
Yeah,
But you
here
then
you
have
guys
to
go.
live this thing.
Here's your new culture.
Your new culture, right? You can't do that. So, you have to reinvent it all the time. You have to have employees always involved in adapting it and critiquing it and bringing new ideas in it.
I'm really liking what you're saying, because for us, we did this with our PR company, and we went through and had all the employees do our vision and our like motto, and put all the words, put all of the words together on a wall,
mission and value statements.
Yeah, values, mission. And so you just said that, you're like, but it's not the vision and the values and whatnot. So you're talking about like the everyday speak, like, oh, this is how this works, and this is how this makes me feel, and how when people are down in the trenches that are working for you, that's how they think. And when you say it like that, I feel like I need to go back and do something like this for Branded Group as well, and just get them to have it in like the culture, the real culture. Not that our culture isn't real, but like the deeper level thoughts. I love what you're saying here. So
because you said something really interesting about serving and giving back, and so likely one of the phrases that would be in your culture deck would be something like "we live to serve."
Definitely.
Or something like that. And if you don't articulate it really simply, but really powerfully, it's easy for people to forget that actually one of the, whatever it is, 20 things that really matters is that we live to serve.
I like it. I'm like taking notes over here.
Well, Michael, the talent office is an international consultancy, so
noted.
Any time you need the help.
Noted. I like it. So going into the next question, we kind of talked about it in the beginning, but what role, if any, do managers have on influencing culture? Yeah. So let's go circle back to that.
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, you're right. We did talk about it, but it's. I just think it's so important, because we all experience the culture of way we work through our managers. You're important because you're the CEO. But if I work for you, I work for a manager. And so my experience of being an employee of your company is a little bit driven by you and the comms you put out and the priorities you set, and you showing up at volunteer days. But actually how my manager treats me, what her management style is, the priorities she's setting, the tone she's role modeling, the way that she brings the team together or not, the way that she works with me as an individual or not, that's actually how I experience working for you. So I might understand that there are some things that are important about the climate, the culture. But what I experience is what my manager creates for me. And ideally, there's absolute coherence between those things. So the micro culture that she creates for the team is consistent with a broader culture that you're creating for your company. Ideally, that's the outcome. But that is not necessarily the case. No. And that's why managers are so important.
And back to the point of coming in and snarling because you didn't have your favorite Starbucks coffee.
Yeah.
And that sets the tone for the whole day. And if you don't get your favorite Starbucks coffee 4 out of 5 days of the week, that's a really shitty culture, you know?
Well,
That's
I've got to tell you, I am guilty of that irritation.
the Starbucks coffee or just for
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But no, but you're right, and you know this. Your listeners will know this. You can have a terrible team environment inside a wonderful culture. You can have a fantastic company, but there will still be teams where it's really shitty.
Yeah.
And similarly, you can have terrible cultures. One of my previous employers would be in this category, but there were some really, really good, strong, high-performing, growing teams within that toxic culture. Why? Because they had great managers. They had great managers who created that microculture of outperformance and growth, even though the company didn't want it, didn't care, didn't contribute, didn't make that really a priority, didn't support it at all. But the manager created that, and that's why managers are so important.
I mean, you're making me think so much. I have my middle management team, and I breathe the culture down to them, but are they, just making me think, are they breathing it down to the next level? And I want to say yes, but I think I need to go back and, probably do some brush up with them to make sure that I'm sure we have some discontent at some point, because not everything's perfect,
Of
but
course, there will
get in
always
there
be.
and really do some evaluation, because you raise such great points, and
the question to ask them is, what environment are they creating?
yeah, I like it. I'm taking notes.
What environment are you creating? And they should be able to answer that question.
Right.
And if they might need a bit of time to think about it, because most of us do. But if they don't know the answer to that question, then there's some remedial work. There's some remedial work to do. Funnily enough, that's another thing that we can help you with, right? The self-determined manager training, remotely delivered. We won't even no flights involved.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to have some off-air conversation.
Really.
So this is the big one, and here we are. We were talking about it before we went on the air. What is this, month number 9 now of COVID and work from home and burnout and all the things that we've discussed during this season. And we were saying you guys had your first vaccination was today, correct?
Today,
for the UK, and I found out this morning that the first vaccinations, round of vaccinations for Southern California are going out next week for the essential workers. So there's starting to be a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, but
there is.
But let's talk about how it's impacted culture. How has COVID impacted culture and leadership style currently? What have you seen?
Well, I think it's really interesting. It's been such an interesting year, hasn't it? There's been so much going on, and we've all been tested in all kinds of ways. And some people have come out of that pretty strong, and some people have failed the test, and most of us have had good days and bad days. Plenty of bad days in most cases. I think, for me, the thing that's changed the most is, as it relates to culture, is how you used to feel pretty confident that you could influence the culture because of your role and because of your reach. You could see people, you could meet people, you could smell what was happening in the offices. You were part of conversations. You were visible and accessible, and there was you had your arms around your company. And CEOs feel that, whether the company is 5 people or 50,000 people, they kind of feel as though they have their arms around it in some way, and they use all of the levers and all of the tools that they have to kind of influence that. And I think what happened with COVID and the wrenching shift into remote working and working from home, not even remote, but most people in a lot of organizations worked from home, is a lot of the opportunities to influence culture and style and being that visible force got taken away from you. And it wasn't replaced by anything. I did a podcast a few months ago where we talked about, why aren't you sending stuff to people's homes? Why don't everyone have a branded coffee mug, drinks mats, badges, whatever, pins, whatever it is? Why aren't you sending stuff to people's homes? And they said, well, why? And the answer is because no one's walking into your office and seeing the logo. No one's coming in and understanding from the paint color and the carpet and the way that the reception desk is laid out. No one's getting any of those cues anymore. They're in their home, not your home. They're in their space, not your space. And you've sent them no reminders of there's a bigger enterprise which you're part of. So the other thing that happened, and this is also sort of back to the prior conversation, managers, who I'm arguing were really important, became even more important, because actually in many cases, the only interaction you had with a company was with the team and the manager. That was pretty much it for the vast majority of employees and the vast majority of organizations. So the tools that you had as a senior leader to influence the culture they drifted away, and they were replaced by, I'm in my home and I have multiple Zoom conversations with my colleagues and my manager. So if your manager isn't really in tune with the culture and how we want to work and how things should get done and what's actually important, then you've lost so much control of your culture. It's fascinating. It's really interesting.
I mean, you're making me just, reflect. And in the beginning of this pandemic, we were doing that. We were, Zoom calls and happy hours, and we were doing a book club, and we were sending lunch to the employees and letting them know. And then it just got so burnt out.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to hear the recipe of the week or the workout of the month or the yoga of the month, right? So it was just like, leave me alone. And so we took our foot off the gas, because I think that message can start falling on deaf ears. At least that's what I thought. But now, to your point, I think there are some opportunities where we're, 9 months later, to send a little swag package, and maybe do a Zoom background for everyone, because I'm sure everyone's tired of seeing my ceiling fan in the back. so and as such, to your point with the managers, like, I'm sure all the managers, like, you're looking at whatever's in their background too, and it's just like, oh, we forget, because you're muddying the culture waters of, we're still a branded group, but you're not. You're Michael Kurland living in your apartment in California with his ceiling fan above his place, and he's drinking out of not even his branded group mug. I'm not even going to plug the mug that I'm drinking out of. So
yeah, exactly.
All good stuff. Really making me think today. I hope for the audience too that
we should have done this 6 months ago.
Yeah, I don't think we would have known 6 months ago. Like,
no,
right? Because the burnout wasn't real. The burnout hadn't happened. I think we're doing this at the perfect time, and I think it's just for me, and like I said, hopefully for the audience, it's reinvigorating to, okay, we still got a culture job to do. Like this, Christmas is right around the corner. The holidays are right around the corner. So, everyone usually takes their foot off the gas, but there's still stuff to do culturally heading into 2021. I love it.
There is, and I'm starting to describe it as getting ready for the Great Reset.
Yeah, because we were talking about that too.
Next year is going to be wild.
David, I can tell you, so my, to get into me, like my 2019 and the 6 years prior, I was on a plane, at least 1 week a month, if not 2 weeks a month, going to travel for business. And, I would get to experience wherever I was a little bit extra when I wasn't working every single minute I was in that city. Right. But I've been on a plane 3 times this year.
I know, it's incredible.
It's,
isn't it?
and I'm just like,
It's incredible.
send me anywhere. I'll
Yes,
go do anything,
it's
but there's
true.
nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go. So
It's true.
to your point, like as soon as the
Yeah.
vaccine's distributed and people feel comfortable and travel's ready, like I'm getting on a plane and I don't care where I go, but it's just somewhere to like, give me a restaurant where I can try a different type of food and all that stuff. So yeah.
But, and the pleasure of being in front of clients and in front of your people, and just being just recreating those communities, it's going to be huge.
So this has been a great conversation. I think we have so much more to touch on, but we'll have to save that for the next episode when we have you back on. But last question I ask everybody: what are you an expert at? And what advice do you have for our audience on how to become an expert at said thing?
What am I an expert at? Well, I guess I'll be a bit thematic. I think I'm an expert at telling managers what to do.
I like it.
Which was why I wrote the book, or maybe I feel I'm an expert because I've written the book. Maybe that's the better way to put it. And it's a passion for me. The importance of people managers and the role that managers have and the impact they can make on people's lives is just a passion. And that's sustained through the writing of the book and the publishing the book and the creating the training company, and now trying to get people to actually want to pay attention to any of that stuff, all of which is massively uphill. Of course it is. And so I think if you're going to claim expertise, as I just have, make it something that you passionately, that you have a passionate point of view about, that really matters to you for whatever it is. Doesn't matter why, doesn't matter, but you must feel it. It can't just be an intellectual expertise, because that's easily replicable. Right at the beginning of our conversation, actually, we were talking about the ubiquitous availability of information and transparency of all of that. What will differentiate you as an expert is not what you know, it's how much it matters to you. And if it really matters to you, then people will pay attention in some way to your expertise. If it doesn't matter to you, they won't, and they'll go somewhere else, because there is always someone else to go and get the information you can provide. So go after something that really matters to you, would be my advice.
I love it. Very, very great advice. So, David, this has been a great conversation. As I said, I want to keep going, but we're running short on time. So,
yeah, aren't we?
We'll definitely have you back on.
Thank you. I'd love to come back on.
If the audience wants to get a hold of you, how can they find you?
So they can email me, david@thetalentoffice.org, or they can go to the Self-Determined Manager website, www.selfdeterminedmanager.com.
Great. And everyone, please pick up that book. I think
yes, buy the book. It's on
Amazon. A lot of good nuggets.
It's on Amazon. People say it's like a conversation with me, which, if you've survived this long and want more of this, then yeah, the book's not a bad proxy for this.
Well, David, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, We'll definitely have you back. And audience, until next time.
Thank you for tuning in. I hope that today's episode inspired you to become a purpose-driven leader in your career or your community. There's no doubt that when we lead with purpose, we can change lives. If you enjoyed today's show, I'd be grateful if you would take a moment to rate us on your preferred listening platform. To learn more about Branded Group's Be Better experience and how we provide industry-leading, on-demand facility maintenance, construction management, and special project implementation, visit us at www.branded-group.com. Be sure to follow us on social media, and you can also reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. Until next time, be better.